Hafaday, welcome to Weekend Edition. I'm Tyler Matsinani. Glad you could join us. May 7th, that's the date of the showdown where all interested parties will have a chance to show out as the Supreme Court is hearing oral arguments on an extensive case. KUAM's Adriana Cotero has the latest status on the quarantine hearing.
Governor Leon Guerrero wants to put it to rest once and for all.
This is Supreme Court case number CRQ 20-002, in re request of Lourdes A. Leon Guerrero, Imagahagan Guahan, relative to the power of the executive branch to establish, maintain, and operate quarantine facilities in Guam and to promulgate quarantine and sanitation regulations for the people of Guam against the importation and spread of disease.
The governor is challenging the constitutionality of the Emergency Health Powers Act in relation to her powers to order quarantine for incoming travelers during a public health emergency. This comes after Superior Court Judge Elise Iriarte has ruled in favor of numerous travelers who petitioned the court for their release from the government quarantine facility. This far-reaching case not only has Governor Leon Guerrero standing off against the lower court, but also coming forward to square off as interested parties are the Department of Public Health and Social Services, incoming travelers, and the Guam legislature. All parties' legal counsels appeared for a status hearing before the Supreme Court this week, while the Public Service Defender Corporation, who represents incoming travelers, is the only interested party opposing the governor's position. There's a different matter all parties are wrapping up for, including the Office of the Attorney General, State's Chief Justice Philip Carbolito.
Now, as to the separation of powers issue, the legislature and the Office of the Attorney General are aligned with Public Defender Service Corporation. As I have indicated, I have granted the AG's request for 10 minutes of argument at oral arguments.
The Chief Justice is allowing all parties 10 minutes for oral arguments regarding the separation of powers issue. As reported, the higher court asked for the legislature's input on whether or not the two statutes in the law are inorganic or not, ultimately meaning whether or not a person in quarantine will have access to the court to appeal their quarantine. In the brief, the legislature argued they are organic and consistent, subject to the laws of Guam in order to provide protections and prevent abuse of powers. As earlier this month, Speaker Therese Terlahi voiced their stance on KUAM's The Link.
So we believe that the laws and the governor's powers can act together, and that they should act together, and that one should not act without the other.
Oral arguments are set for May 7th. Reporting for Guam's News Network, I'm Adriana Cotero.
It was in February when the Guam Fire Department changed up their health and wellness policies after a handful of firefighters assigned to the same shift and station tested positive for COVID-19. We check almost 2 months later to see if the strides taken have protected its men and women.
I say this with cautious optimism. From February to present, we have 0 documented cases of our guys being positive. We know that there could be a plethora of factors that contributed to our overall 0 positives. Our guys, our personnel could just be getting better at doing what they're doing. Our exposures could be down, or it could be that our wellness policy is working. Nonetheless, we'll take that 0.
Battalion Chief and Infection Control Officer Ed Chaco says that GFD is taking the necessary measures to stay that way. And one of these measures includes checking in with personnel.
I do wellness checks and we assess for a condition called pandemic fatigue. I can assure you when I look into our members' eyes that we still see vigor. We know we still have a lot of fight left in us, and we're poised to finish this.
Since the onset of the pandemic, they have tested 216 GFD personnel, some multiple times for either being symptomatic, identified as a household contact, or due to work exposure from a COVID-positive person. To date, there have been a total of 17 personnel who have tested positive. Now, to help streamline with the testing process, members from the Tumuning Fire Station and commanders received training on swabbing and utilizing the Abbott ID Now, which allows them COVID testing capability. In regards to the breakdown of COVID numbers as of March of this year, there have been 3,327 COVID-related calls for GFD units since March of last year, 1,457 COVID-related calls that were picked up by their transport units, and 622 COVID-positive patients transported by GFD ambulances or COVID units.
The COVID units have been very instrumental during this COVID era. We'll plan to keep them in our fleet for as long as we're in emergency declaration. Unfortunately, the transport unit, the COVID transport unit at PD, had to be taken offline, and that was primarily due to manpower.
Although it has been over a year since the pandemic started and almost half of the adult population on the island is vaccinated, it is far from over, as we've seen with the recent COVID clusters. And if there's anything Chaco has learned, is that they need to be flexible in this ever-evolving virus.
Being able to adapt and change is key. Once the personnel know what they're up against, and they know what they have to do to push forward, will be good. And this is difficult because members of the fire department, they're all alphas, and they question everything. But in this particular instance, they were very receptive and very attentive to the changes and the training that we had.
Reporting for Guam's News Network, I'm Jonah Gonçalves.
Open up the hotel ballrooms to 75% capacity, just like the restaurants are now allowed to do. That's what Senator Jim Moylan is asking the Public Health Department to do. He's also urging that the 50% capacity limit be lifted for the ballrooms to make it profitable for the hotels to open them.
Allow them to put this tables 6 feet apart. Allow them to enforce the no mingling in the hallways. Sit down, serve meals. It's like just a large restaurant at 75% capacity. So I'm asking that we look at that. And I think the hotels will be putting more people back to work, and we'll be helping our economy recover too.
Moylan has written to Public Health Director Art Sinogustin and is awaiting his response. As the U.S. marks its 51st Earth Day, President Biden kicked off day one of the two-day Global Climate Summit. The president has pledged the U.S. will cut greenhouse gas emissions by about half over the next 9 years, with a target of net zero emissions by 2050. Deborah Alfarone has more from the White House.
Before a virtual gathering of more than 40 world leaders, President Biden signaled the U.S. is back in the climate fight. He pledged to cut U.S. emissions from 2005 levels by up to 52% before the end of the decade.
The signs are unmistakable. The science is undeniable. But the cost of inaction keeps mounting.
Those joining the president in curbing climate change included the leaders of Russia and China.
China will strive to peak carbon dioxide emissions before 2030 and achieve carbon neutrality before 2060.
Also, Pope Francis.
We need to ensure that the environment is cleaner.
After Thursday morning sessions, members of the president's climate team discussed what the president's global goals mean domestically.
Investing in infrastructure, innovation in our workers and communities, it's something we cannot afford to pass on.
Addressing climate change is also a key driver in the president's multi-trillion-dollar infrastructure proposal, which has drawn pushback from Republicans in Congress.
He puts more money in his proposal for electric vehicles than he does for roads, bridges, ports, airports, and waterways combined.
Thursday, a group of Senate Republicans unveiled their nearly $600 billion infrastructure counterproposal, which focuses on roads and bridges, clean water, public transit, and broadband. Deborah Alfarone, CBS News, the White House.
Federal drug defendant Naomi Parr admitted to using meth and failing to appear for drug testing numerous times last year. According to Parr's attorney, Joseph Rosano, she is being assessed for treatment at Guam Behavioral Health and Wellness Center. Rosano made an oral motion for temporary release in order for Parr to get assessed, and the court granted it. She pled guilty to conspiracy to distribute a controlled substance, and in part of her sentencing, she was placed on a supervised release term with conditions for 3 years. She faces 3 to 9 months back behind bars for violating her release conditions. She will reappear in court on May 11th. 65-year-old Rick Guevara was arrested and is facing charges of second-degree criminal sexual conduct as a first-degree felony. According to a magistrate's complaint, a victim, now 15, alleged Guevara had been sexually assaulting her for 8 years, most recently in January of this year. The victim told police that when she was 7 years old, she sat on Guevara's lap when he allegedly said, quote, "Don't worry, you won't get pregnant this way," unquote. Guevara told police an incident took place when the victim was 12, where she sat on his lap, but the victim had made the comment. He also said he was only joking when he had touched the victim earlier this year, but it was not meant for sexual gratification. 62-year-old Rosemary Cruz Guevara was arrested and charged with family violence as a misdemeanor. The victim reported the incident on April 21st. According to a magistrate's complaint, while arguing with the victim, Guevara allegedly grabbed the teen victim's hair, dragged her through the living room before punching her multiple times in the face. A witness in the home confirmed Guevara had pulled the hair and punched her in the face. Guevara admitted to police she dragged the teen by the hair to keep her from running away. Stay tuned. Next on Weekend Edition, we have a Great Earth Day project and still to come, sports.
Get up-to-the-minute news, plus access to alerts, streaming radio, promotions, and more on your mobile device by downloading the KUAM News mobile app, available at the App Store now.
This year, the Think Green Annual Cleanup goes virtual. Organize your community cleanup, post and tag with hashtag ThinkGreenGuam on social media. And we'll share your cleanup in our multimedia platforms and in a special montage on KUAM News Weekend Edition during the last weekend in April. Sustainability matters, part of the KUAM Care Force's commitment to our community. In partnership with the University of Guam Center for Island Sustainability and Guam Green Growth. Presented by Green Energy Solutions, Inc. Reduce before you produce. GESI. Special thanks to Micronesian Brokers, Inc.
Half a day. As we look ahead to a brighter tomorrow, Matson's commitment to Guam and Micronesia remains stronger than ever. While the world around us is ever-changing, what remains unchanged is our commitment to you, our customers, and the island communities we serve. Shipping is what we do best, and serving our community is at the heart of everything we do. But we don't do it alone. This is why we support organizations that make caring for the people and the environment a top priority. We know that many count on Matson's lifeline services in the Pacific, and that's why we continue to work hard to ensure that our shipments remain on time all the time. Matson recently added another Aloha-class vessel to our schedule. We now have two of Matson's largest and fastest ships serving Guam from the U.S. West Coast and Hawaii. With our new state-of-the-art vessels, we stand ready to support the region's economic recovery. Thank you for the privilege of serving you for the last 25 years, and you can count on Matson to be here for the next 25 years and beyond.
With Prism Home Wi-Fi, I'm not just getting smart Wi-Fi that adapts and delivers consistent speeds that cater to my lifestyle needs.
I'm getting peace of mind with real-time online security that monitors every device on my network. Parental controls with the ability to filter age-appropriate content for my child. And with HomePass,